What's up, everybody? Welcome to Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm Katie Mox, your host. Coming up on today's show, the Final Four tips off on Saturday. We've got best bets for you. Plus, we'll give an update on the Moxie Bets Bracket Challenge that is still going. It is very sad for me. I'm no longer in the ones. And opening day has arrived for Major League Baseball. We previewed the NL on Tuesday. Kenny Betts Big is here to give you his best AL futures for the upcoming season. And of course, you know it. You've got some Mox Locks coming your way. Without further ado, let's welcome the man, the myth, the legend, Kenny Betts Big, fresh from his Los Angeles trip.
Katie, what's going on? LA, the biggest thing I didn't like about LA was the time difference.
Yeah,
I was waking up around 11 o'clock and I'm used to having hours to handicap the games. But, the college games are starting around like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, threw me off
yeah.
a ton.
I will say that, yeah, because you're not used to it, that makes sense. But living on the West Coast is so much easier for watching sports than the East Coast. The fact that like the basketball games start at 7 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. here, it's just like it is easier. But yeah, if you're not used to it, they do start really, really early. So that makes sense. And I heard you got a parking ticket that you're gonna have to win some bets to cover.
Yeah, so my girlfriend, not a great planner. She had to get a couple things for the bachelorette party. Asked me to run and get some pastries. So I go to the
Yeah.
bakery, and they're filming some sort of movie shoot, or I don't know what it was, but they got a whole camera crew set up there, blocking half of the road. So I pull up, I park, and I'm like, all right, well, I should be good here. I'm just running real quick. Come out, $350 ticket on my window. So yeah, definitely need to win some bets after Texas and Alabama broke my heart.
Also, I can hear Thor in the background barking. I feel is he on some dogs tonight? It seems.
Yeah, you hear that? So it's probably my mailman
Yeah.
dropping some stuff off. But yeah, we got some big underdogs for you tonight, so I might have to bring them on for a segment.
You should, and I will say Kenny has a huge dog that's so cute and so sweet, but probably one of the biggest pit bulls I think I've ever seen. I mean, his name is Thor, so it's named appropriately. He is named appropriately. But yeah, I mean, at some point I would love to get Thor on for an underdog of the day, but first, let's just get into Mox Thought right now. So the NFL voted to keep stadium sportsbooks open during game days. The NFL owners voted on this in Arizona. The amount of things that they turned down, and the one that I was the most upset about, is they turned down the automatic review of roughing the passer calls because there were so many insane roughing the passer calls. The fact that you can't review them is just crazy. So they didn't pass that, but they did pass that you can keep these sports books open during games. There are 4 teams that currently operate sports books. You got the Cardinals out there in Arizona. You got both New York teams over that MetLife stadium. They have books on the outside, and actually Washington has a book inside the facility. Now, according to The Athletic, the revenue will not be shared with other teams until they exceed an amount to believed of $20 million. And then they would have to share it with the 31 other teams in the league. So about half of the NFL franchises right now currently reside in states with legal sports gambling. Those teams obviously are going to benefit financially. They don't have to give up money until they exceed $20 million. And so I feel like this is a really good move for sports betting in general. First, I don't think it affects gambling and people because 99% of people are doing bets on their phone. You know what I mean? It's easier. It's more convenient. I don't think having a sports book there or being able to bet in the sports book during a game is going to change anything from like a personal perspective for gamblers. But I do think that this is going to be really good for states legalizing sports gambling that haven't already, because it's obviously going to grow state revenue through taxing and higher gambling profits for these NFL teams. So I feel like these NFL teams, if they're not in a state that has legalized gambling, they're going to be pushing for it because they could keep up to $20 million. That's what I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head as far as it's definitely going to help tremendously the states where, they're kind of lagging a little
Yeah.
bit, haven't legalized it. One, the NFL teams are going to put a ton of pressure on them when they see, these
Yes.
other franchises raking in millions and millions of dollars.
Yes.
And, it's funny. You said the NFL ruled against making the game better by implementing the reviews, but they ruled in favor for making more money. Who would have thought?
Because they're
Uh,
greedy. Because they're
yeah, of
greedy. Yeah.
course, right? It's funny because when now obviously the gambling in the NFL, it's, trending topic in the news. You see a lot of other like older news articles about how the NFL, hated gambling, right? Like back in like
Yes.
2017, 2018. I read a story. They wouldn't even allow Tony Romo to go to a fantasy football convention because it was next to a casino. So how the times have changed. Yeah, I don't think it will change much. Like you said, most people are already betting on their phones anyway. All it's really going to change is allow these NFL teams to make more money. You don't think? Do
Which they
you
don't
think as a
need.
fan
Yeah.
though? Do you ever think it will change, like, obviously the outcomes of some of these games? Like, I'm a big believer in that sports are fixed to some degree, right?
Yeah. And,
So
I'm a big believer that they're not because I'm just a purist. So I don't like to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, I think things happen in games and maybe some things are a little bit suspicious, but overall, I don't think that things are fixed. So I feel like you and I just have a complete different perspective on that. So I don't think that it will change. But then even if I did feel like that it was rigged, having a sports book on property or right outside of property and being able to wager in the games is, again, no different than anybody wagering on their phone sitting in the stadium or outside of the stadium or whatever. There was nothing stopping people being able to wager online during games, at games, etc. So even if there is a book right there, but I see what I as I'm saying this out loud, I can see where your train of thought went, meaning because the teams are going to be making so much more money. But no, I'm a
yeah,
purist. I just don't believe that anybody does anything wrong.
like what worries me from like this type of standpoint, like now the books and these NFL teams are almost going to be in a relationship together, right? So what's to
Yeah.
stop an NFL team from letting the books know, hey, this player is probably not going to play this week, and the lines adjust accordingly? People like us, watching
The
from the
government
outside.
would be all over it, though. The government would be all over that because that is, essentially like insider trading. So I don't know, but also sportsbooks already have sponsorships with teams. So they're already getting money. I don't know. It will be interesting. But the one thing that I'm super excited about is I feel like this will push for legalizing sports betting in more states because these NFL teams are going to really be pushing for it. And again, I don't understand why it's not legal, everything. We've already chopped down the myth of old school thinking that there are all these degenerates that are going into bars and getting their legs chopped off if they don't pay their bookie type of thing. Like, that's not what it is. Of course, there's always going to be some people that take it too far, as with any vice, drinking, drugs, whatever it is. So, yeah, of course, you have to have responsible gaming. And we absolutely push that on our show to bet responsibly. But states, teams, anyone can make so much money taxing this. Just legalize it. Just come on board to the pirate ship. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. You're watching Moxie Bets, and we'll be back with Capper's Corner. Caesars Sportsbook, it's not just an app, it's a whole empire. Iconic casinos, hotels, world-class restaurants. It's all yours with Caesars Rewards. Because every bet you place, win or lose, earns reward credits, which you can redeem for hotel stays at over 50 destinations, meals, tickets, merch, bonuses, and more. Get started today. Create an account with promo code OMAHA-FULL. Time now for Capper's Corner. Let's welcome back in Kenny Bets Big. And look, March Madness is ending, and oh, how mad it has been. Now, Kenny, I don't know if I've talked to you about this because you weren't on the show last week. Does this feel like the craziest March Madness? And I feel like we maybe say that every year, but the fact that 3 teams in the Final Four have never been there in program history, like, this is wild. Have you been caught off guard by it, or are you feeling like this is great?
I don't want to say I was caught off guard by it, because I think we actually had a conversation about it like a week prior to the tournament starting, and I said, based on how the regular season played out, there was so much, the most number 1, 2 seed overall upsets like during the regular season, right? Like the 1 seed would lose, the 2 seeds would lose. So it just kind of showed there was a lot of these teams were kind of on closer playing fields than a lot of people probably thought.
Yeah.
When the tournament started off, like, there was obviously a ton of chaos, right? Arizona went down. A lot of these, Purdue went down. I kind of thought it would, towards obviously like in the later rounds, the Elite Eight, the Final Fours, we would see a little bit more chalk because of that. And
Yeah.
it seemed like it was trending that way, right? Like Alabama had a clear path
Yeah.
to the Final Four. Texas had their path cleared. And unfortunately for me, they fell short and couldn't get it done. But what do you think though? Like I'm looking at these Final Four teams, and the Final Four, or even like any championship matchup we get here, doesn't really interest me as a fan.
Well, that's the thing. People are saying it's either the greatest Final Four or the worst Final Four because it is so different. And the quote unquote best teams aren't there, the number ones, the best in the country. And I do think that these NIL deals have really opened up the playing field for, I mean, you look at a program like Miami, right? A lot of that has to do with some of these deals that they're doing, especially on the women's side, which I don't believe the women's side actually went past the Elite Eight, but you got those two twins that right now the NCAA is cracking down on the two ladies. But I think moving forward, looking at this, I'm going to not really, you look at these bloods and you want to go chalk, and yeah, there's a little upset here and there, but for the most part, the cream always rises to the top. But in going forward with these NIL deals and what we have learned this year, I think I will go less chalk moving forward, and we'll have to kind of see how these programs look in the quote unquote new world. I find it exciting. I like, but I'm not a huge college basketball follower, right? You've been betting on it all season long. You really have a lot. You've got a lot. And this is one of those things where if you bet the underdog, Kenny, in every single matchup in the tournament, you'd be up over $1,500. Like, when can you say that in years past?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because like I saw a couple trends going around on social media where people are like, I'm just gonna put $100 on every underdog and see what happens.
And they
And in years
and they're
past,
up.
you're not profitable doing that. But this year, obviously, if you stuck to that, and you had the cojones to keep betting all these underdogs, you made out pretty well. So interesting to see. My bracket's totally cooked, but I do want to point out of me, you, and Danny, I think I'm first.
You are. And I was going to say, and I talked a lot of trash the first week because I was amongst the ones. Where am I now? 115th. Of course, I had Bama to win it all. They're out. Kenny, you are leading the three of us. 64th. You, of course, had Texas to win. That's not going to work out. Danny's third. Danny is last. He's 125th. And he had Kansas State to win it all. Currently, our first place is Chi-Town Texan. And this is actually a person that I know, Ty. He's been a longtime follower of me on Instagram. So I'm super excited that he is in first place. Would love to have him on the show and actually get to talk to him outside of just being a loyal follower and like just a really cool guy. He had Bama to win it all. That's, of course, out. But I truly believe that almost nobody has somebody in the Final Four. I will say my cousin Lindsay had UConn. I remember when she picked it, and we were like, "Oh my God, you're so ridiculous!" And it looks now to be like UConn is actually going to win it all. But congratulations to you, Kenny. As it stands right now, you are leading the Moxie Bets trio.
I appreciate that, and I wish it could, offer me some sort of comfort and closure on it. But I want to say, Katie, I'm out in
Yeah.
California at my girlfriend's sister's wedding, and I'm sick to my stomach, right? I had a bet to win 21,000 that Alabama and Texas both make the Final Four. I had 3,000 to win
Oh,
$60,000 that Texas would win it all. So when these paths like Houston goes down, Arizona goes down, Baylor goes down,
mhm.
I'm sitting there like, holy this, I'm about to hit these bets. Like this is actually happening.
Yes,
And
yes.
it all fizzled out so quick. Alabama blew a 10-point lead in the second half. I'm sick to my stomach.
That was unbelievable. I thought San Diego State was going to cover, but in no way did I think they were going to win that game.
Yeah, it was a tough weekend for me. It took a lot to get over that one.
Yeah, I mean, sick, just absolutely sick. That's
Yeah.
a lot of money. A potential money. You almost feel like you're robbed, right? Like it's potential money. It's not yours yet, but whenever it's like really close, you're like, oh, somebody actually robbed me of $60,000. And that is who was it that beat Texas? Was it
Miami, and
FAU?
Texas blows a
Miami. Yeah.
14-point lead in the final 10 minutes of the game. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And the worst part was, so my
Insane.
plan, because I had 3,000 to win 60,000, that Texas wins it all, right? If they had to
Yeah.
play, I was just going to start hedging them, like put 10,000 on the other team, and I would have guaranteed myself like a $20,000 to $30,000 profit. And for whatever reason,
Right.
I said, you know what? I'm not going to do it against Miami. I'm going to try and just save a little bit more money. I got greedy, and it bit me in
Right.
the ass.
Oh, all right. Well, let's try to make some of that money back, huh?
Yes,
Looking at
let's do
this
it.
first game on Saturday, we got San Diego State. They're laying two, minus 130 on the money line, over under 132 and a half. So I'll go first on this one. And I talked about this on Tuesday. I'm going to go under on this game, under that 132. SDSU's identity is really their defense. They're allowing just 57 points per game during the tournament so far. And they held one of the nation's best offenses, Alabama, to just 64 points in the Sweet 16. There was only one game that has surpassed 130 for the Aztecs so far in this tournament. They limit opponents to 40.8% shooting from the floor, 28.2% from 3-point range. Now, we obviously do know that FAU has been pretty good at the three ball, but I do feel like San Diego State can limit them. And you got to think with teams that have never, ever been to the Final Four before, and then you get this large stadium, there's going to be some nerves. There are going to be some problems with their like depth perception, which the shooting has already been like a little bit off in this entire tournament. So I'm going to go on this under. I know it's the popular thing. Everybody's on the under. Again, it could bite me, but that's what I'm going to take here. And I'm going to root for San Diego State University because my friend is coach.
Your friend's the coach?
He's an assistant coach. So he went to San Diego State University. Shout out to Dave Velasquez. He went to SDSU. He was like a student manager kind of on the team. Then on his final year, I think he actually made the team, but he was like a coordinator and a manager and all of these things kind of on the operational side as well. And then I think he went to one more school, like UOP, after he graduated, came back to He's been there for like 20 years. And he's worked himself up there. He's very, very big on the defense. He gets a lot of credit for that. And he's just been there for so long. And like, this is his team. He went there, he played there. He's been coaching there. I'm so happy. It's so amazing to see your friends win and, achieve their dreams and goals. So goals, excuse me. So I'm rooting for San Diego State.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And it's always a cool story when you hear like guys, like you see it pretty often, like, they went there, they worked their ass off, they played, they grinded. Now they're assistant coaches working their ways up. So it's a cool story. I'm on the other side though. I lean FAU.
Cool story.
Yeah. Cool story, Katie. See ya. Yeah, I lean FAU here. I think I'll probably take him on the money line. The one thing that does worry me, I was actually listening to your show from the other day, and you had the guy from Action Network on, and
Holland,
yeah, and he was talking about how FAU is much better at shooting off the dribble, and how San Diego State is one of the better teams in the country. I think top 5 or top 10 in defense guarding 3 points off the dribble. So that does worry me a little bit, and I think that does play very well to your under bet. I think the under is a nice play there. But I just think FAU just has it going for them right now. You see the teams they beat, and then you look at the teams that San Diego State has just beat, like Alabama, Creighton, 2 of the teams that a lot of people thought had a better chance to win it at this point. And you see the line is only 2 points, and I just feel like the public perception is going to think that line should be a little bit higher, and everyone is going to be on the Aztecs to just keep that run going. And I think what you said?
I said right.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I just
agreeing.
like FAU there. I think they'll be able to get it done. I like the big guy inside. He's great on the offensive glass. He's been keeping things alive for them, kicking out to the shooters to hit those threes. So I like FAU there.
All right. Well, I hope that you are wrong, but of course, I'd like you to make up some money. And because I feel like I'm kind of emotional about my friend moving on, that's why I'm laying off the side. But looking to lock in that under. Okay, so the next game, you've got the Miami Hurricanes versus the UConn Huskies. UConn is favored minus 250 money line, 5.5 point spread, over under 49.5. I'm going chalk here. I just think that UConn is a better team on both sides of the ball, but it is a little scary because Miami is this like frisky team. They're perfect against the spread in this entire tournament so far, including as 8-point dogs against the number 1 seed Houston. But I just think that UConn has the program experience there, and they have the better team. And look, they started the season 14-0. They actually look better now than they did then. So I also live in Stamford, Connecticut. I mean, there's a lot of heart going into this. I was walking Edie the other day. I saw the UConn Husky mascot just walking around because there's a UConn campus here. So give me the Huskies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think UConn will win this game outright. The 5.5, though, I will probably lean and take Miami in that spot. But it's funny because I went right before the season ended. I went and saw UConn play. They played Villanova, and they just absolutely smoked Villanova, ran them off the court. And I said to
Yeah.
myself, I was like, wow, this UConn team is a lot better than I thought they were. And
Yep.
they're so big. Like, they got the two big guys inside. Their guards are big and strong. So I feel like they could ultimately just be too physical for Miami. A little bit smaller of a team, likes to shoot, play more of a finesse type of game. So I think UConn will ultimately win the game, but I like Miami with the 5.5.
All right, let's pivot and let's cover all the bases here. Today's the day, and I know you're a big MLB fan and you are a big MLB bettor, and it is opening day today. So really exciting. On Tuesday, and great. I'm glad that you listened to the episode because we had Colin here, and he basically did a preview of a bunch of futures for the NL. So we're going to take a look at the AL with you today. But before we get into all of that, who do you like to win the World Series?
Come on, Katie. The Mets. The
Um,
Mets. And a little bias, obviously,
Kenny?
but I mean, as a
Yep.
fan, how could I not be? This is definitely the best team we've had in a very long time. The ownership is going out, they're getting the pieces. Obviously, I expect there will be midseason moves made, right? There's always those big acquisitions at the
Yeah.
deadline. So I'm sure the Mets will add pieces at the deadline. But yeah, I like our chances this year. Obviously, the division's tough. The Braves, the Phillies, they're both scary teams. But I like the Mets this year.
All right. At some point, their luck has to change, right? At some point, the Mets in the postseason have
But
to show up. So like every good fan says, this year is our year. So I'm hopeful for you on this one. Now let's go back to the American League, and if you look at each division, right? What is a division favorite or division? Who do you like to win a division within the American League? If we look at some of the favorites here, of course, you got the Yankees in the AL East plus 115, Central, the Guardians, the West, the Astros, defending champions here. What is a division winner that you've zeroed in on for the American League?
so I'm going to go with the Chicago White Sox to win the AL Central.
Yes.
You like that one?
I'm hot on the Chicago White Sox. I don't know if it was with you or with Danny, but I actually have a future bet on the Chicago White Sox to get back in the playoffs this year. I feel very strong about them. So I love this.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. People are not counting the fact of them losing or getting rid of Tony La Russa as a huge
Yes.
step up. Huge step up. I don't think, obviously, it was talked about, at nauseum last year how he was holding that team back. So I think just getting rid of him and bringing in, a younger new manager in Pedro Grifol,
Mhm.
huge
Mhm.
step up right there alone. Two, I don't
Well, and
think
they just
Yon
were
Moncada.
plagued with. Yeah,
No,
sorry.
go
I was
ahead.
gonna
What were
say
you
they were
going to say?
plagued with injuries last year. They were plagued with injuries last year, and they're getting healthy. Like, I think a lot of people are underestimating them. So I actually love this. But sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
No, I was going to say the same thing. Like, I don't think they're going to be, I mean, knock on wood, right? Injuries you can't really predict, but I don't see them being plagued like they were last year by the injury bug. They lost a lot of big players for a lot of games. And then you look at some of their players like Yon Moncada and Grandal, like they had their worst seasons ever last year. If those guys even just regress back to the mean and play a little better than they did last year, they're going to be a very good team. They got the pieces, they got the star power and Tim Anderson, Luis Robert and those guys, Eloy Jimenez. They got an exciting rookie and Oscar Colas coming up. He could be a big player for them and make a big impact right away. So yeah, I'm high on the
Yeah.
White Sox. They got a great bullpen, strong starting pitching, and at plus 230, I think that division's wide open. And then when you look at the rule changes in baseball this year,
Yeah.
a lot of people are talking about the pitch clock and the bigger bases as the big rule changes, but they also made a huge change to the scheduling of how these teams play. So last year and in years past, these teams played the division, like for X amount of games. They would just kind of keep circling around. This year, they've limited the amount of games they play against their own division. So teams like the Guardians,
Oh, yeah.
who in years past would beat up on the Tigers and the Royals and just dominate the
Mhm.
division that way, they're not going to be able to rack up those wins against those weaker teams. So I think teams like the Guardians, who won it last year and won 91 games, outperformed expectations tremendously. I think they'll regress, and I think the White Sox will kind of look more like people expected them to look last year.
And it's so interesting that you bring that up because that was kind of something that I was thinking for the NL West too. When you've got the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks, usually get beat up in their division, but that's going to be a little. I actually like them over their win total because they won't have to face the Dodgers and the Padres as much as they have been. So totally agree with you on that one. And let's go Sox.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously we like the Sox to win their division. I'm pretty sure you're not going to take them to win the pennant. What's a bet you like there?
So I don't hate them to win the pennant, but no, that's not where I'm going with this
Whoa.
one. I don't hate just from a value standpoint. I think they're like plus 1700, plus 1800 range. It's a lot of value on a team that has a lot of star power, good pieces all around, strong pitching, bullpen. But I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays to win the AL pennant.
Mm.
Another long shot. They're plus 1200. But when you look at the Rays, they're just like a Class A organization. Every year they get slammed by the media because they let key players walk. They don't want to pay the money, and every
Yep.
year they just retool, they bring in new guys and they just make it work. They plug in, they plug and play. Then they got guys like Wander Franco, who's coming off a season where a lot of injuries, didn't play up to expectations. I think they'll get a much better year from Wander Franco. Randy Arozarena, they have Yandy Diaz. So a lot of key pieces, a lot of good players, good bats in that lineup. And I think at plus 1200, they're projected to have a top 3 bullpen in baseball. I like the Rays a lot this year.
All right, I can ride with you on that one. Now, if we talk about league MVP, you got Shohei Ohtani is the favorite at plus 200. I mean, his performance in the World Baseball Classic was just iconic and so fun to watch. And then, of course, you got Aaron Judge, you got Mike Trout, Julio Rodriguez, you got Vladdy down there, plus 1400. Who are you looking at for MVP of the AL?
Yeah, so obviously Shohei plus 200. If you want to bet him, I don't hate it because no one's doing what Shohei Ohtani is doing. Probably should have won it
Ugh.
last year. But one thing that worries me is, and we're seeing it kind of happen this year with the NBA, is voters don't want to vote for the same player in years past, right? Like Nikola Jokic should be
Yeah.
the clear runaway MVP this year. But I think there's some
I don't know.
hesitation.
Embiid is starting to he was the clear runaway, but Embiid has been giving him a run for his money, but ultimately, I agree with you.
So, and then obviously the injury standpoint on Otani at plus 200, there's just not enough value there for me to put a season long prop bet on a guy who hits, plays, and pitches. His injury risk is tremendously higher than a lot of these other players. I'm going to go with Yordan Alvarez on the Houston Astros plus 1200. Finished.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a sneaky one, and I don't think a lot of people are talking about him this year. He finished 3rd in the AL MVP voting last year. And that was he played 135 games. He had 37 home runs, 97 RBIs, and no shift this year. So I think he's a player that's going to benefit tremendously from teams not being able to shift, players around the field to account for his hitting. So I think his numbers will only go up. And if you're looking at, if let's say Ohtani is fully healthy this year, it could potentially take like similar to what Aaron Judge did last year, just a historic season. So I think Yordan Alvarez is in position to have a big year. He could potentially win the Triple Crown. So I'm going to take a shot on him at plus 1200 to have a big year.
I love that one. A lot of good value there as well. Okay, so let's move on to Rookie of the Year. You've got Orioles Gunnar Henderson is the favorite plus 300. Then you've got Anthony Volpe or Velope?
Volpe?
Volpe.
Yeah.
Okay, got that one wrong. Anthony Volpe plus 450. And some of these, every time I have to get into a new sport and there's, especially like rookies that I'm not super familiar with, it's like, good luck to me saying these people's names. But who do you like for Rookie of the Year in the AL?
Yeah, and baseball's tough because of the farm systems and, there's older rookies,
Yeah.
younger rookies that are just kind of scattered.
Hockey is the worst, but yes, baseball, I would agree.
So for the AL rookie, I'm going to do 2 bets here just because of the odds. Future bets, they're a little bit riskier. Sometimes it's better to go smaller bets and kind of spread them out and hope you hit one. I like Anthony Volpe at plus 450. He's second favorite.
That's how you know how to say his name. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't hate that bet at all. At projected, if you look at the WAR projections for the rookies, he's second right there behind Gunnar Henderson. Usually the Rookie of the Year is a player who's like at the top of the WAR rankings. But I do like Oscar Colas. He's plus 1,500. You can find him on Caesar Sportsbook. Mentioned him a little bit earlier when I was talking about the White Sox. Here's why I like him. He's a player who I think can step in and make an immediate impact on a team that underperformed last year. And if they come in and win the division this year, it will look like he made like he has a lot to do with that. Do you get what I mean? Like last year they
Yeah.
underperformed. They come in this
Yeah.
year, they play a lot better. He's a big piece of that. His nickname used to
He's the
be
impact.
what would you say?
He's the impact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. His nickname used to be the Cuban Otani because he's actually can throw a fastball 95 miles an hour. So he's got a huge arm, but he's not going to be pitching.
You know what's hilarious is that Otani was the Japanese Babe Ruth, and now he's kind of not that anyone could surpass Babe Ruth, but now all of a sudden Otani is the person that, oh, he's the Cuban Otani. Like that's just actually pretty wild
Yeah,
that he has now become such a person that people are saying they are a certain version of him.
yeah, it is pretty crazy actually. I didn't think about that, but yeah, like why are they not comparing him to Babe Ruth, right, anymore?
He could be the Cuban Babe Ruth, but no, he's the Cuban Otani,
Yeah,
which is that's I think it's cool. I
exactly.
like it. Yeah.
But so I bring that up for a reason. He's not pitching for the White Sox, but he's got a cannon of an arm. So if out in right field, he had 7 arm assists last year in the minors. If he's out there making plays in the outfield, he's got a big power bat. If he's hitting home runs, he can easily steal the show. And at plus 1,500, I like the odds there.
Okay, so let's look at pitching now. Cy Young Award, DeGrom and Garrett Cole at the top of the odds board here. Are you going chalk on this one, or have you found some value?
No, I'm gonna go chalk here for a couple reasons. One, Jacob DeGrom plus 400. I know it's not a ton of value. It's not a huge plus money number, but if Jacob DeGrom's healthy, there's like a 90% chance he's winning the Cy Young. He's hands down the best pitcher in baseball. It's just a matter of if he can stay healthy. And it would be
Yeah.
the most Mets thing ever, would it not, Katie, if Jacob DeGrom comes out, is fully
I
healthy, and just
know.
lights it up all year. So as a Mets fan,
Oh,
that's what I'm expecting to happen.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. That makes and look, you've given such value picks. It's okay to go one chalk, and I agree with everything that you're saying. I think that he is a good one here. So, any other MLB futures for the AL that you think we should fire on?
Yeah. AL Cy Young. I'm also going to do a little sprinkle on Shane McClanahan, the ace for the Tampa Bay
Oh,
Rays.
okay.
Yeah, he's got electric stuff. Last year, kind of fell off at the second half of the season, but if he's takes a step forward, he could easily win it at plus 1,200. I like those odds. But I'm going another one I like is Yordan Alvarez to lead the league in home runs.
Ooh.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that's a good case for your rookie of the year.
no. Well, Yordan Alvarez I like for MVP. And
Oh, well,
to
still.
Yeah. So and to lead home runs plus 1,200 as well. His MVP plus 1,200. But again, like I said, 37 home runs last year. I don't think we saw Aaron Judge with the 61 or 62, whatever he finished at last year. That was a historic year, right? Like I don't see that happening again. A player reaching 60.
Well, his yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, I think it was like 62, I believe that it was. But his over under, if you look at Aaron Judge's, it's like 44 and a half. So the books don't even think that he's going to get close to that. And I was looking up yesterday, the last person to repeat as a home run hitter of the year was like in 2010 and 2011. It was Batista. So the odds of this happening again for Aaron Judge to win 2 years in a row, it hasn't happened since 2010, 2011. It seems to me like there will be a little bit of regression there. So I like this pick.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. So definitely get in on that one.
Get in on that one. All right. Well, the time has come, Kenny Bets Big, for Mox Locks, our best bets for the weekend. I will start things off here. Opening day, MLB. Obviously, our show gets posted a little bit later than we film it. So there was only one game in the kind of later slate that I was looking at. And look, we're high on the White Sox. So why not look at the White Sox and the Astros? And look, it's a new era for the White Sox. Tony La Russa is gone. We are both very excited about them this season. I do like them to make the playoffs. They're going up against the Astros today. And that is a really, really tough place to start. So I'm going to take the Astros in the first 3 innings on the money line, minus 135. That was just the best value. It was like 170 or 160 for the game, or maybe that was the first 5. And then I don't know. But this was the best value that I saw. And even if I do think that the White Sox are a little bit undervalued, Houston led MLB with a 2.80 bullpen ERA during the regular season last year, 0.83 ERA during the postseason last year. They've got Valdez on the mound today, and he went 17-6 with a 2.82 ERA, 194 strikeouts last season. He's also 3-1 with a 3.41 ERA in his 5 career starts versus the White Sox. I also think that Houston has just had success against Cease.
Yeah, that's I don't hate that one. The Astros lineup is absolutely frightening, especially with the addition of Jose Abreu. So should be an interesting game. The White Sox taking on the Astros. You know, their longtime veteran player Abreu leaves, goes to the Astros. So always storylines involved in these games.
Love it. What are you locking in?
So I'm going to go another first three, but I'm going with the Mets. I'm going to take the Mets on the first three money lines, minus 120. Couple of reasons why I'm taking them for the first three. Obviously, no Edwin Diaz. I'm staying away from the full game. I want to see how the bullpen looks and things play out.
Yeah.
Max Scherzer on the mound. Any Mets fan knows how the season ended for Max Scherzer last year. Got absolutely smoked in the playoffs. Anyone knows Mad Max is the ultimate competitor. I think he's coming into this year fired up, wants to redeem himself, you know, prove it to the fans that he's not washed, he's not old. And I think we'll get a good game from him. Then you look at Alcantara, the pitcher for the Marlins, pitched a ton of innings last year, high velocity pitcher, ton of innings last year. You looked at what he's done in the World Baseball Classic. He got absolutely lit up. So Mets coming to Miami today, and I think they'll roll.
Now, there's 2 questions for that. You mentioned Edwin Diaz, and obviously he got injured celebrating in the World Baseball Classic. What are your thoughts on the World Baseball Classic? Is this because I do think in a lot of ways it's really good for baseball, and I think for a lot of countries too, specifically Spanish-speaking countries, this is a very, very big deal to be able to compete on this stage for the country. The viewership was through the roof, even more in some games than the World Series, but it is kind of a sticky situation when you have these teams that are paying these guys hundreds of millions of dollars and then they get injured in what some call, I'm not calling this, but some call an exhibition game. So just what are your thoughts? Because I think Mets fans, of course, are the most affected by this because Edwin Diaz got injured.
Yeah, but like again, what are my thoughts? It sucks. Obviously, we lost the
Yeah.
best closer in baseball, but it's not like he got hurt playing. So I mean,
Yeah.
again, the most Mets thing ever. The guy gets hurt, jumping around, celebrating a win. Like that's what it's like as a Mets fan, just constant suffering. I think the World Baseball Classic obviously was great for the game. You talked about the views; it was blowing away like the actual MLB game.
Yes.
The views they were getting.
Yes.
So I think it was good for the game. I think the timing of when it was played though was just bad. I think you could have done it
Yeah.
maybe at the end of a season, so these guys are already kind of
Yeah.
like in game form. Maybe
Yeah.
the injury risk
Mhm.
goes down a little. Maybe mid-season, I've heard some players like Max Scherzer talk about that. Like if it was mid-season or something like that, they would be more inclined to play. But I think
Okay.
it was a good event overall.
I do too. And the other thing is this first 3, we're both on first 3. And that's something that I've just noticed really in the last year. I was betting a lot of first 5 money lines. And obviously first 3 really zeroes in on just the pitchers and how you think they're going to do, because they're going to last at least 3 innings and hopefully they last 5. But what are your thoughts on like just first 3 spreads and money lines and betting those?
Yeah, I like to attack them, especially like you said, if a team has like a weaker bullpen and I kind of want to stay away from the full game. Or what I like to do is you can go on like baseball fan graphs or any of those sites that has like the advanced metrics, and you can look how a pitcher typically performs his first time through an order. You know, how he does
Mm,
his second time through an order. So you'll see sometimes these pitchers, first time through an order, they're like unhittable. Once they face the lineup for the second, third time, they get lit up like a Christmas tree. So if a
yeah.
pitcher has strong numbers for those first 3 innings, I'll usually look to take a team on the first 3 inning money line or spread, whatever, if they're underdogs or favorites.
Also, Fangraphs is not something I was familiar with, so I'm definitely going to be looking that one up. Thank you very much. Okay,
Gotcha.
here is my second lock for the day. I'm taking the Greek Freak, Giannis, going back to the NBA, by the way, over 12.5 rebounds. It's at minus 108. He's coming off of a 17 rebound game against the Pacers. He's hit the over in this mark in the last 4 meetings against Boston. He had 13 in their last matchup just in February. And Boston has allowed 53.2 opponent rebounds per game on the road this this season. So they're not very good on the boards on the road. That is bottom 10 in the league. So give me the Greek Freak to get over 12.5 rebounds tonight. What's your next lock?
I love the Greek, anything on the Greek Freak. Let me
The
ask you
most
this, Katie.
likable, so talented, and the most likable guy, I think, in the NBA. I mean, he's hilarious and sweet and just, he's the best. He's the best.
Hands down the most likable guy by far. But let me ask you, why does Giannis never get any love for like the GOAT talk, right? Like LeBron James, when he
Yeah.
first came in the league, that's all that we've heard is LeBron James is the next
Yeah.
Michael Jordan. Giannis is
Yeah.
unstoppable out there. Like and I've never hear anyone really giving him any love. Like he's never really talked about as the best player in the world right now. He's never really
You know
considered
what
to
it
be.
is? I think it's because he doesn't have that cutthroat personality that you saw from Michael Jordan or that you can see from LeBron James. He is a goofy, lovable, you know what I mean? So I think people don't, if someone doesn't have, or Kobe Bryant doesn't have that killer edge, which and not, of course he does have it. I mean, he was a back-to-back MVP. The Bucks have done very well. He does everything so well, but he's just so goofy and lighthearted that I think people don't give him that killer instinct GOAT talk.
Yeah, because like in today's NBA, where these guys are just jumping team to team, building super teams, for a guy
Yeah.
like him who didn't do that, stayed in Milwaukee, where an organization that was kind of bottom of the barrel, and he took
Yeah.
them to they're elite. Like they're the best team in the East. They've won a championship already. So yeah, I think Giannis needs a little more love than he gets. My next
100%.
Mox lock, we're going with the NIT championship, going North Texas
Ooh.
+2. I maybe sprinkle the money line as well. This is the fourth
Mhm.
time these teams have played this year, North Texas versus UAB. North Texas won the first two matchups. They lost the last time they played a couple weeks ago, but UAB in that game took 32 free throws. 32 free throws, and they won by 6 points.
Wow.
So if things regress back to the mean, North Texas, very
Yeah.
good defensive team, shouldn't foul as much. I think UAB will not be taking 32 free throws tonight, and I like North Texas to get the win.
Well, and that's the thing too that's so funny about college basketball. It's like none of those kids can make their free throws, but see, they had 32 and they still only won by 6 points. It's just like wild to me.
Unless
But
you're
I
Miami
love
and
that. I might
Kenny has Texas and Miami doesn't miss any free throws.
which never happens. I feel like we're always like yelling at all these kids to make their free throws. Yeah, until that one game. But all right, Kenny, thank you so much for joining us today. Hopefully you can make some of that parking ticket money back from Los Angeles. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesar Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets, and we'll see you next week.